Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we have to talk about Iran because Iran proves that the government shouldn't control the internet. Now, here's what's going on, and if you didn't know, Iran right now is for the most part, and we believe, melting down. What's happening there right now, and before I get into what actually precipitated this, at the moment, basically platforms like Twitter, WhatsApp, Instagram are currently being blocked by Iran due to essentially a what we believe is a riot. I'm not saying it's a revolution. We don't know what's going on, but essentially about 50 odd towns and the capital of Tehran right now are in the process of attempting to quell violence, and information is slowly coming out. That is not in dispute. We know that that is happening because that is trickling out. The images of this are trickling out to media. But here's what precipitated this, because, and I've got my notes here, essentially what happened was a 22-year-old woman, Mahsa Amini, she is basically from the northern part of Iran. She's a Kurd. She went into police custody last week, and essentially what happened was that she was captured, or not captured, but she was arrested by the morality police there for not wearing a hijab in Tehran, and then a few days later she ends up in a coma for 3 days and dies. Now, none of that is in dispute. This is actually what happened. The morality police picked her up for not wearing a hijab. She was in a coma in a hospital after being in police custody. Now she died. Now, what they are saying is, and obviously everybody is making up their own minds based on whatever they believe, is one, that she was beaten by the police, obviously suffered injuries so traumatic that it put her into a coma and her body just simply did not survive and she died. The official position right now of the Iranian government is that she died of a heart attack. A 22-year-old woman died of a heart attack. Okay, believe what you want to believe. Again, information is slow to come out, and with the cap that they are putting on the internet, it is very difficult, obviously, for, let's say, dissidents to coordinate their actions, but even to get information out. Not to mention the fact that, these are things that the United States and its allies who are adversarial to Iran would essentially take and amplify across social media, the Twitters of the world, where, basically Iranians can go and get information. The only two platforms left from Western countries right now in Iran are WhatsApp and Instagram, although a lot of their people use VPNs to get to the Twitters and the Facebooks of the world. And so here we are. Is this in part, being amplified by intelligence? Is this in part, actually what happened? We don't know. But what we do know is that there is basically serious violence going on in Iran right now, and the government is clamping down on the internet. Now, I bring up all of this to say that I'm not saying that the government should have no ability to regulate the internet whatsoever, but it has to be based on, let's say, the precepts, of the laws of the land. Obviously, Iran has a much stricter code for things like expression, or I guess morality, if you will. We don't have police walking around telling, women to put covers on, those kinds of things. But at the same token, there has to be a balance. And so I will look at the United States, for example, of what we have. For example, if you're on Facebook and Facebook kicks you off or puts you in Facebook jail or whatever, you have no ability to cry First Amendment violations. Facebook is a private company. They do not fall under violations of the First Amendment. The only one that can violate your First Amendment, if you didn't know legally, is the government, meaning if they are quelling your ability to peacefully speak, peacefully protest, peacefully practice your religion, freedom of the press, if any of those things are hampered, basically the First Amendment protects us from the government. But as a private corporation, for example, I don't have to work with you. I don't have to deal with you. I don't have to do any of those things. Now, that said, there are limits to what freedom of expression is. The Supreme Court has also come out and said you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, meaning you cannot basically incite something that would cause potential violence or harm to others, aka lie in public and cause a problem, aka disinformation. But on top of that, it really doesn't have that many limits. So think about the most recent example that we have. If you don't know, there's a platform called Kiwi Farms out there, and quite frankly, if I don't know, you're a white supremacist, a Nazi, a Klansman, or just really pissed off at everybody, Kiwi Farms is probably for you. Now, if you're in the Klan or a Nazi or whatever it is, you have a absolute right, a 100% First Amendment free speech to basically say whatever you want about whoever you hate or whatever it is. And honestly, that's your right. I can't take that away from you. The government shouldn't take that away from you. And as much as I disagree with you, totally disagree with you, that is your right. But there is a line when it crosses into actual violence or harm to others, and Kiwi Farms is the example of this. Now, for the most part, it's been shut down as of a few weeks ago or so. I believe it is still down. Basically, nobody would want to take them on as a provider or infrastructure provider for Kiwi Farms. But Kiwi Farms moved from the freedom of speech, basically their freedom of speech was primarily against trans people, into coordinated actions that would cause harm or violence towards people of the transgender community. And a few weeks ago, basically a transgendered, and I apologize, I can't remember if it's a woman or a man, basically committed suicide, blaming Kiwi Farms for this nonstop harassment campaign that he or she was receiving, from Kiwi Farms. That crosses the line. But if we are trying to do we're trying to do something like disseminate information, such as, hey, this woman was in police custody, she's 22 years old, she died of a heart attack, according to the government, but she obviously seems to have been beaten by police. Again, we don't know for sure, it's speculation, but again, how does a 22-year-old woman die like this? That's what we're talking about. And so I think there has to be a limit put on those things. In other words, you cannot incite violence, but at the same token, Iran sees a lot of disinformation campaigns in the same way that we see disinformation campaigns coming from Russia and China and other places. We're launching them over there as well. So everybody's doing this. I think it's a huge problem, but to have a government be able to come down and say, no, you can't use WhatsApp, and I just happen to be peacefully living my life and I'm not part of anything, that is something that I don't think should be able to happen. So there you go. Probably a little bit of a ramble. I got multiple sources, on this one as I'm just going through and talking about this. Matt Novick and Gizmodo had a pretty good write-up on this, that I read as well. So you might want to go check his stuff out. But my point is that we should have a free and open internet, and as long as we are not causing harm to others, we should be free to express ourselves as we see fit. We should be also free to coordinate actions, providing they are, again, peaceful, and not violent. Iran might be a separate issue, but I think this really underscores what happens when a government takes over, the internet. It's never a good thing for anybody, and so there you go. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, and please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private. Thanks, everyone.